You will have to excuse me if this gets a bit emotional for me over the next few minutes. Just give me a second to gather myself. So, after much deliberation with family and friends, meditation, prayer, a lot of thought put into it, I have decided to come out of retirement. So if you haven't noticed, maybe this has bypassed a few people, but I can't imagine that America has not been just gripped and in a complete trance over my absence from live performances, whether those be live streams, call-in shows, since this past Thursday. So Thursday to Sunday, it's been 3 to 4 days of just this national issue, this national nightmare going on. So I have decided to come out of retirement, and I want to thank everyone for your patience. And yeah. Okay, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Good to be here with everyone here on a Selection Sunday for NCAA basketball. Yes, and of course, my little opening was a bit of a poke at our friend TB12, Tom Brady, coming out of retirement, which he has every right to do. Every right to do. Who did not see this coming? Who in the world did not see this coming 2 months ago when he announced his retirement? The man is still at the top of his game. He still wants to play. He still plays for one of the best teams in the league. Why would he not continue to play? Yes, I don't think many of us really took that as being a legitimate retirement. So if you want to talk Tom Brady and him coming back to the NFL and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we can do that if you really want to waste that time. Otherwise, we're talking football, basketball, football. The NCAA tournament selections have been announced, and of course that came down first, I believe, is the tradition on CBS and mirrored by ESPN. I did not watch the selection show for probably I don't know, maybe a 10th consecutive year, something in that range, probably 7 to 10 years. I've not watched the selection show after watching it for probably the previous 30 years. I had to watch the selection show. But it's fallen off my radar. But tonight, in honor of all of you, in honor of what we're doing here at the Voice of College Football and our call-in show tonight with all of you, and we want to give you a chance, an opportunity to vent, to rant, to cheer on the committee, to do whatever you do on Selection Sunday, and let us know who you're rooting for, what you want, what matchups you're looking at, and all of that. And I will just sit quietly and listen and probably give you some kind of perspective from 1998. I'm also going to share my NCAA tournament memories, both in person and watching on TV. And the biggest reason that I looked at the brackets earlier than I've looked at them in, again, about 10 years. I used to, again, be glued to the screen on Selection Sunday, selection by selection by selection. Last 5 to 10 years, whatever it's been, we get into 3-4 days later. There have been years I didn't even look at a bracket over the past 5 years or so. But tonight I did in preparation for this show because I'm going to unveil the best football matchups in the first round of the NCAA tournament, the best football matchups. And also, we're going to look ahead to the second round for the possible great football matchups right here at the Voice of College Football. We do have a call coming in. But again, the Voice of College Football coming out of retirement, I'm sure that is a relief to many of you. Let's get to our first call right here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Chris, how are you?
Hey, Chris, what's going on tonight? Man, I am awfully loud in my ear. Go right ahead, please.
Oh, I am?
I am.
I'm loud in your... Oh, I thought...
No, that is all me.
You're not loud in my ear. So.
That is all me. Okay. Yes, sir. What's going on tonight?
Nothing. I'm glad you came out of retirement, though. Or was it you or was it Tom Brady? I didn't quite catch it on time. I don't know if it was.
It was a bit of a.
I'm glad
a poke at our greatest of all time there. Just having a little fun with that.
Well, when you think about it, Mark, those guys, even the very best players, I don't know that their career is especially long. I mean, we could talk about Tom Brady and what is it? We're talking maybe 20 years. Is it 20 years? I'm not really sure. Maybe for sure, but is that an especially long career to have? I don't know. I mean.
Well, it's not an especially long career compared to other careers, but within the NFL, it's, of course, an extremely long career. Sure.
Oh, no, he's definitely stretched the limits of, at least, I don't know what I haven't really looked into it. I know there were some players I kind of liked when I was younger that were pretty good well into their, I want to say 40s, but I don't know if that's really true. I think up until about age 40 is about when they, past 40, I think is when they kind of start to lose a little bit of whatever it is so if he's in his 40s, he's definitely stretching the limits of what he can do, which is great. Anyway, I wish him well. I hope he does well because, like I said, that's amazing that anybody could have a career that long in the National Football League. I don't think there's that many people. Maybe who has, but I don't think there's been that many that have been able to do that.
Yeah,
so
mostly
I'm glad he's
kickers.
Come out. I didn't think he.
A lot of kickers. Not a lot of kickers,
really?
But kickers. And George Blanda still has the longest career of all time as a kicker/quarterback, 26 years.
Wow. I didn't know that.
But he's at the top of the list or very close to it, Tom Brady. Yeah, it's remarkable.
The one player, I don't know, George Blanda, he was a quarterback, wasn't he? I was thinking Ray Guy was a pretty established punter for a while, wasn't he? Ray Guy?
Oh, yeah.
For the Raiders. Yeah, I remember him playing for quite a while.
Now, in terms of a position player other than a quarterback, Jackie Slater comes to mind. I think he played 19 or 20 years with the Rams at tackle. Jim Marshall.
Oh, he did?
Do you recall Jim Marshall with the Vikings?
Yeah.
He played from 59 to 70. He played a 20-year career as a defensive end. But, it's very, very rare.
I remember him. And Lalo Zado, you remember how long he played? I'm asking you, Mark, because I don't know. I mean, I don't.
He played.
I think he was drafted relatively.
Here's just my ballpark guess. He was somewhere from like 73 to 85.
So he was approaching 20, probably.
That would be my guess. I'm going to go 73 to 85. I'll look him up here. Yeah, Raiders, Broncos. Of course, he played for your Orange Crush defense. Absolutely. Played for the Browns.
I think he's one of the more unheralded. And I think he was actually pretty good, but people don't always talk about him because he had what? One of the better players, I think.
Yeah, good call by you. 1971 through 90. So that's a 20-year career.
Only 19, isn't it?
Well, if you count actually 71, 72, 73, 74 and go through it, it's 20 seasons. Yeah, 71 obviously 90 minus 71 is 19 years, but I believe it's 20 seasons if you go through the counting. That's remarkable. I did not give him credit. I didn't think it was quite that long for Lyle Alzado. Oh, no. You know what happened here. Okay, let me revise this. I'm looking at it. I was more accurate than I thought. 71 through 85. My guess was 72 through 85. Anyway, 71 through 85. And then he tried to come back in 90. So basically 71 through 85, 14-year career for him. And then in 90, he looks like he came back in training camp and got cut.
Oh, okay.
That's what happened.
Well, anyway, when I was still, I don't know what grade I was in, but he wore number 77. I kind of liked him. He was, I'm not exactly sure. Was he a defensive tackle? But anyway, maybe he wasn't. But he was one of my more, I thought he was a pretty good player. I thought he he wasn't all talk. I mean, he was a lot of talk, but he wasn't all talk. I thought he kind of maybe more bark than bite, but he still. I think he pretty much he delivered. I think he delivered on what he said he was going to do, and I don't think he's one that doesn't get enough credit. I don't think for the Orange Crush. He among several other players, I think were really Randy Gradishar. Of course, you know who he is.
Oh yeah.
They were among the several. He was one of the better players on Denver's defense. But they call themselves the Orange Crush, but they had a lot of good players, actually. Those are two of them. I met Red Miller once. He came through where I live. I live in Alamosa, Colorado. I don't know if I ever told you that, but it's a small town in southern Colorado. And Red Miller actually visited here one time. So I actually met Red Miller. He was Denver's coach the year they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Red Miller.
Red
Sure.
Miller. Yeah, I actually met him twice. I met him once there, and then I met him once when I was happened to be in Denver to actually never. When I say met, you have to take that kind of didn't have a conversation with him, but I saw him. It's like saying I met you. No, I saw him in Denver's Stapleton Airport sometime later after he'd already retired, and so I'd met him twice, I guess, total. Red Miller. I've been in his close proximity to him twice, and he seemed like a pretty level-headed person. I think he took Denver to the next level, or he with John Ralston. I don't know if you remember who John Ralston was.
I do.
John Ralston. He was Denver's coach before. I don't know if he got fired, but he either quit or got fired. But he did a pretty good job in bringing in the talent, and then Red Miller was able to take that core group of players, and they, I think it was the first year he actually coached them, but anyway, took them all the way to the Super Bowl that year. Because in '77 they played Dallas in the Super Bowl. Of course, Dallas beat them pretty bad, but Dallas had a better team. I mean, it was pretty clear that the better team won. But I know a little bit about Denver Bronco history. I'm not probably the biggest fan you'll ever meet that keeps up with the Denver Broncos, but because I live in Colorado, I think that's you can't really live here and not know a little bit about what they've done. But the year they had to beat Oakland to advance to the Super Bowl. That was a pretty big deal. That was for Denver. They had never played in a Super Bowl, so that was kind of beating the Raiders, especially. I think they were Denver's hardest opponent. I think you could say they had Ken Stabler and then some of those other players that were really good. So to get to the Super Bowl, they had to beat Oakland. So that was a special moment for Denver.
Oh yeah,
and Denver,
I remember it well. Wasn't there a controversial play at the goal line with Rob Lytle?
Yeah, fumble. Yeah. No, you're right. There definitely was. I don't think it was. I think Denver won 20-17. I don't think it was. It wasn't like Denver skated to a win. I think they they needed every lucky break they could get, but they did. I think the fact it was the Raiders. I think because the Raiders were the defending Super Bowl champion, and yeah, you're right. Rob Lytle fumbled, but I don't know. That's one of those things where it's like we'll never probably know what really happened. But yeah, he did fumble apparently.
Yeah, I've seen that play a zillion times, and I don't know that they got it right or got it wrong. Either one, I have no idea. It's that close.
There was one other thing. Before we hang, if it's okay, I was gonna. Don't they? Is it a committee that picks the? I'm not really in the know on any of this. Mark, you have to kind of help me out here. Is it a committee that actually picks the bracket, or
yes? I
think some of those are auto bids, aren't they? Some of them auto qualified.
Yeah, if you win your conference tournament.
But are the rest auto qualifiers too?
If you win your conference tournament, and again, I'm going to spit all this out, and this was all accurate at one time, but I haven't followed it for quite some time. But if it's still the same, then the conference championship tournament winner, not the regular season champion, but the tournament winner is an automatic qualifier. The only league in which that's not the same as the Ivy League. They don't play a tournament. So their regular season champ is their auto qualifier.
But I thought there were some conferences that were kind of given, like, am I wrong? Like Big Ten, don't they get 6 or 7 teams in there sometimes.
Yeah, I think they have
I always
9
thought they had like
this year.
9. But that's because they're, it's not because they don't deserve it. It's because they, obviously they have a higher grouping of teams that are capable of making a challenge. Is that kind of what it is?
They are just determined to have, yes, the committee, much like the college football playoff selection committee. It's the same deal, except for they're selecting, well, there's 68 total. And I got to think, I'm just going to take a guess that about 25 of them are auto qualifiers, maybe a little bit more. And then they select the other probably 60% of the field.
You know what? I really don't know. Is it the RPI that they use? As far as I know, sometimes they look at the RPI.
Well, I know
what they use to decide who goes.
Yeah, and again, I'm sure we have plenty of people that could answer this better than I could. But much like the college committee or the football committee, they could tell you what tools they use, but they're not married to any one component. They don't. If they select a team with a lower RPI, they don't have to explain that. They just say that, well, that's just one of our factors.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the year Virginia Commonwealth almost ran the table? Do you remember that year?
Yes.
I don't know how long ago it's. I don't think they were ranked all that high in the
2012, 2013, something like that.
They were almost like an afterthought, and they almost won the whole thing. That was kind of a strange year. Weren't they almost an afterthought? I mean, they were like a team like on the bubble, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Virginia Commonwealth.
They were like a 12 or 13 seed, something like that. All right,
I don't
Chris.
think they were ranked especially high. What? Okay.
I'm just going to get to some other calls here. I appreciate you calling in.
That's fine.
Call back soon.
That's fine. Have a good day.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
Bye.
All right. Denver Broncos leading off. In a million years, I would not have been able to guess that our first topic for tonight's show, which is kind of a marrying of the NCAA basketball tournament and college football, would be about Lyle Alzado. But hey, as you can tell from my responses with Chris, I am here to talk about football all the time. And certainly if you bring up NFL history of any sort, I'm a sucker for NFL history. Let's get to our next call here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Falconer.
Falconer. How are you?
Yeah, I don't call in much. I'm good.
Is this the first time you've called?
No, second time. I called once before, but we had
a
bad connection. It didn't go well.
Well, I appreciate you so much for the super sticker. Thank you so much for that. You were very kind.
Everyone should support the show if they like the chat. And like you said, you go in talking college football, and now you do 10 minutes on Lyle Alzado, and where can you get that?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but where can you get that? Yes.
Well, something. So I was going with the best matchups.
So are we talking best basketball matchups or the best football matchups? I was going off I'm football. I mean, I do like the NCAA, and Miami went farther than I thought they would, and I think they're going to have a good run this year on basketball, but it's not my jam. Yeah.
Full time.
Me as well.
But I'm an old school. As you know, I'm an old school Kane. Like back, I was there from 88 to 92. If that shows my age.
Ooh, yeah. Right about when I would have been there.
So yeah, we're both old guys.
Yeah, we are.
But some of the things I liked though back then, like some of the football kickoff classics, was when Miami was good and Penn State was good. Like I remember that kickoff classic was Miami Penn State or a Miami Ohio State. I wouldn't want to do it the last 3 or 4 years, but I think we're heading the right direction. And if we get back to where we should be, those kind of kickoff classic games, or every 2 or 4 years having and not just Miami, but a Florida play at Ohio State or a Penn State, like something outside of the SEC, something we haven't seen a million times.
Yeah, the Kickoff Classic was amazing. If you recall, the first one came after Miami's first national championship in '83. It was in August of 84. And it was just cool because it was a weeknight and it was way before the rest of the college football games. It would be like August 27th. And the first one was Auburn, Miami in 84.
A game you never see.
You know what? I'm going to correct
in league play.
Hang on just a second. I'm going to correct myself because I think there was one in 83 because Penn State won the national championship in 82. And the initial idea was to take the national champion and put them up against another great program. And so Penn State won it in 82. The opener of the Kickoff Classics was in 83, Penn State and Nebraska. And Penn State pretty much lost their team and Nebraska just rolled them. But yeah, Miami and Auburn played a great game to open 84.
But a non-conference game with top teams from the year before.
Yeah.
The first game, the only game on TV. So all of us guys that like live and breathe college football, I don't care who you could be. I don't care what your fan base. You could be USC, you could be Washington, you could be Miami, Florida State. You would watch that Kickoff Classic because it was two teams that, the year before didn't play, and it just brought excitement. I think marketing wise, I think it's golden.
Yeah, it was cool. It's kind of turned into week 0, but the week 0 games are typically pretty lame. Like I get excited for them because it's our first college football, but it's a lot of Colorado State, Fresno State, Oregon State, Hawaii. Those are typically the week 0 games.
I think Miami tried to pull it off, scheduling Alabama as an opener. It didn't go their way.
No. It doesn't go many teams' way against Alabama.
Well, but at least they weren't opening up against, a cupcake team. The preseason cupcake, where you pay a team, you give them $1 million to go beat them. I don't like that.
Yeah.
But I will say this: I did have the pleasure of. I've attended one game at Ohio State at the what do you call it, the Horseshoe?
Mm-hmm.
You guys at the big house in Michigan. You guys are the Horseshoe. So I went to the shoe. I had a friend who was friends with someone who had a box, and I got it for my 40th birthday, so we're 12 years ago, and it was Miami, Ohio State. We lost, but I will say, I hate to admit it. It was a great time, and it's really hard to beat. That's a very good atmosphere. I mean, and I think that plays into it. I think Michigan has it. Miami used to have it at the Orange Bowl. I don't know that we've got it yet. Hopefully we'll get it back, whether it's at Hard Rock or somewhere else. I think we can do it at Hard Rock. I think with that amount of people in that town, if we're winning, I think we'll fill it. It's just it's a fickle fan base. In Miami and Fort Lauderdale or South Florida, there's so many things to do year round. If you're not winning, you're not getting eyeballs.
Yeah, that's the way it's been. I think the contributing factor, in addition to that, is that there's a lot to do. The stadium's not on campus, and a lot of people consider that to be an excuse, and it is to a certain extent. But it is difficult for the students to get to the stadium. And then also, I think that Miami's got more of a national fan base than most schools. So their fans aren't all concentrated in South Florida. They're more so all over the country.
Can I ask you a trivia question?
Sure.
Which major city has the largest alumni club? Outside of Miami.
I would guess, and we're talking about a major city.
Yeah, a city everyone knows. It's not Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, okay. I would say, I am just guessing, I'm going to go with New York.
It's Chicago. New York's, I think, number 3. But
yeah, I thought of Chicago.
but these are the kids I went to school with. I mean, I'm a Florida kid, but where I was, I'm not a kid anymore. I have kids in college now, so I'm probably not a kid anymore. But that's Chicago's huge. I mean, Miami's a national brand, and if they do what they're doing, I think they're doing it right. I hope they're doing it right. Who knows? The whole picture's changed. The NIL stuff, the transfer portal. It's not college football that I grew up loving. I mean, not that I don't love it. I think we're poised to handle it better than most. But I do spend time in Northwest Iowa in the summers. My other half of my family, my wife and her family's from that area. So I do get to the Midwest, and I get to give the Nebraska people and the Iowa people, and then I get to give them a little bit of the business and fly my flag on the dock with the Miami flag, which is very unusual in Northwest Iowa. But it's part of that was the fun of it all. The traditional conferences, the traditional matchups in the bowl games, I just loved after Christmas as a kid. Christmas, I got my presents, and then I knew in the next couple of days I was going to see really cool bowl games with the pageantry and the parades, and I guess that's probably long gone. And there's a lot of money involved now, and TV contracts and things I never thought about when I was 17, 16, 14.
Well, there was a lot of money involved then too, and there were TV contracts involved as well because we were watching them on TV. I think what's happened is that the athlete themselves has determined and they have discovered that they have power, that they have authority, that they have power, and they have determined and discovered how to use it.
Well, I think they deserve, and this is where we get into this whole NIL stuff, and I think it's not fair that the schools were making money off the kids, and the kids couldn't buy their own. The old, it's the cliche. The kid couldn't buy his own jersey. It's been said a million times, but they are getting a degree. They're getting a benefit, and has the value of their play gone beyond the value of the degree? And how do you make that fair? And how do you make it fair among schools? I don't like that's way above my pay grade.
Well, I think we've come to a place where it is fair. What is fair is that the student athlete now receives a scholarship, as they always have, which is a huge, enormous value and benefit. I have always hated when people have discredited a scholarship to say, it's not that big of a deal. They're not really making money. No, a scholarship for any parent who has had children in college, they understand the value of a scholarship and to get complete education, room and board at a top line university. So that's number one. Number two, though, the athlete now has the ability, just like any other American, to go out and earn a living outside of school. So that's what NIL is, for better or worse.
Beyond football, they have a degree. Yes.
Well, I'm not talking about their degree. I'm talking about them being able to capitalize on their fame as a football player, as an athlete.
No, and you've said this before. We all age out or get, eventually the day comes when you can't play the game you love to play. You said it. I've seen one of your videos. You said baseball. I think you were a baseball and football guy, and for you was high school. For me it was high school. I didn't go beyond that. But eventually you have to have another skill set, whether that's broadcast, business, whatever it might be. I mean, that's the key. I think NIL actually helps that. I think the transfer portal might not help that, because I think the transfer portal is all about, I'm going to the NFL, I'm going to the big show, and I'm gonna make my bones there. But I know a lot. I mean, I know of stories of a lot of guys that have gone to the NFL and made a lot of money and are now, tapped out because they didn't finish out. They don't have a backup.
Yeah, ESPN produced a really good documentary called Broke.
Yeah, Broke.
Yeah.
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 The better ones were the 30 by 30s, the U and the U part 2. Those are the only ESPN shows that I'll watch.
Those are the only ones. Well, it goes back to the old saying that you don't give a man a fish, you teach him how to fish. And there in lies that you have people who have won the lottery who go broke because they don't know the value of money. They're not educated in such, and they don't know what they're doing. Yep. All right, Falconer.
One of the things that.
Anything else?
All right, you're gonna. All right. One more thing, just because it kind of ties it in a bow. One of the things Miami didn't promote very much, but one of the things they always have done is if you did leave early, they have a program for guys that go to the NFL to come back with other guys from the NFL. So you're not in class with 22-year-old girls that are going to try to get you in trouble. It was for guys that went to the NFL that didn't quite have their degree to come back. They've done that. They had done that for years, but they kept it very quiet. I always thought that was so stupid. They should market that as, hey, you come here. If you get a chance to go, if sophomore year, junior year, your first round draft pick, you got to go. Like, that's smart. That's the smart play. But then you get to come back, and we'll pay for you to finish your degree if you want to come back and do it. Like, anyway, I just think all schools should do that. If you're gonna offer the kid, but then again with the transfer portal and all that, it changes everything. This was before that. It's gotten so complicated. The math is so. Yeah, it's 4D chess. Maybe only whoever was the QAnon guy could figure it out.
All right, Falconer X, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting. Appreciate that, man. Have a good night.
Bye.
Falconer X with one of the great profile picks that you'll ever see. So check out Falconer X's profile pick, and then also comes up with some very intriguing and interesting contribution amounts, which we appreciate anything over a penny or equal to a penny and up. But Falconer X right there. Speaking of which, Golden Blue Dude is here, and we apologize to everyone who likes to catch our weekly West Virginia live stream, and we'll be back hopefully this week with our West Virginia show, whether that be with me, Golden Blue Dude, Travis Kenobi, of course, Coos's Corner. 2 or 3 of us will jump on here hopefully this Friday to continue our West Virginia series. Get on over to the West Virginia channel and please subscribe there. Golden Blue Dude, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Had to support the GOAT of sports YouTubers, Mark Rogers. Well, Golden Blue Dude, he's got a great YouTube channel. Just check him out. It's not just West Virginia. He loves college football and he mixes it up. So check him out. And of course, he has been the staple, the backbone of our West Virginia coverage here at the Voice of College Football. Let's get to our next call. They're starting to stack up here. So let's get to them right here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Can you hear me, Mark?
I got you.
Yeah, this is Thibodeau from Michigan.
Hey, what's going on?
and I've been watching your show, Mark, or listening to it for a long time, and I always voice my opinion once in a while. And I want to make a point with what you do. I'm from Michigan, and obviously I loathe Ohio State, but we go back and forth, with the Buckeye fans, and even with you when I make comments. And I just have to make a point. I love your show. I've called you once before, about a year ago, and I think you're a real classy guy. You have the patience of a saint, and it really irritates me when I listen to your show. And you're the voice of college football, and you're very astute. And I have to hear people, you're so patient, that call your show up and they start talking about the oil or gas or politics. And it's like, don't they understand that you're the voice of college football, not politics, not anything to do with our government and this or that? And that blows my mind and you're so patient, and I give you kudos because you're never rude. And there's one time that you almost, you wanted to get off the phone, and this guy's droning on and on and on. And I'm going, golly, Mark, get rid of him, meaning you. That I just had to make that point because I think you have a great show. And you're the voice of college football, even though, like I said, I'm a Michigan boy, and I played in that stadium when I played for Eastern Michigan. We had our spring football game. And last year, I didn't think we'd ever beat you again, to tell you the truth, because we're just not loaded. We just don't recruit as well as Ohio State. So I just wanted to make that point, and then I want to ask you a question, and I'll hang up and listen. When do you think Michigan's going to beat Ohio State again? Maybe the next one in the next 10 years?
Well, I'll say it this way, and thank you so much for the kind words. And I do have
You're welcome.
A response to some of the things that you said about the nature of the show, but we'll speak to the Ohio State-Michigan series first and foremost. So I think we all understand, if you're a reasonable person on either side of this rivalry, that what Ohio State has posted in the win-loss column since 2004 is unreasonable. Because, as you well know, they've won every game, and the only game that they lost was a game with an interim coach. Otherwise, it's been a whitewash since 2004. Now, some of the games have been rather close, so it's not like I think there's a narrative out there that Ohio State's just smashed them every year. No, we had a 2-point play in 2013. We had a close game in 12. There are all sorts of. The 2006 game was obviously a classic. The 2005 game was a tremendous.
Wasn't it Fickle that lost a game? Didn't Fickle lose against Michigan?
Yeah, he was the guy. Luke Fickle in 2011. That's the game with an interim coach.
Right.
So Ohio State has hammered Michigan on occasion, but other games have been close, and it's resulted in if you take out the interim year, this tremendous winning streak up until this past season. So there have been lesser teams than Michigan that have beaten Ohio State during this run. Purdue, Iowa, and others. I did the math on Ohio State's record in the Big Ten since 2005, and it's 119-10. That means that
it's mind-boggling.
It is, because if you really think about how good that is, 90-10 is 90%, of course. And so nobody else is winning 90% of their games in a league, except Alabama under Nick Saban. So, and then after going 90%, they would have to go on a 29-game winning streak after that. So that's how their worst record in the Big Ten in that time frame is 7-1. So I don't know that Ohio State can keep up that pace, number one. Number two, the law of averages just say that the programs, even though Ohio State has been decidedly better, are closer than what the series has shown since 2004. And so I've been on record as saying in the last few weeks that I expect, unless something drastically changes, Ryan Day leaves and Ohio State replaces him with not a good coach, or whatever the big change would be with either program, that Ohio State, I expect to win 70 or 75% of the games going forward.
There's no doubt about it. And then I lived in Ohio for 5 years, and a lot of people in Texas or California, if they've never been to the state of Ohio, it's like Indiana breathes basketball. They breathe it. In Ohio, holy Christmas, you have Massillon. You have some of these great programs, Paul Brown. Ohio is nothing but high school football, and they live and die for football in that state. And I'm aware of that because I was all-state quarterback in high school up in Michigan. And then we hated Ohio State. But, we respect them. When I say that facetiously because I have the utmost respect for Ryan Day and Ohio State. Just because I don't want to – we want to beat them. But that state of Ohio for high school football is unbelievable. Moeller down in Cincinnati, I could just go right through the whole state. And I don't know what it is, But those boys down there in Ohio, it starts off in high school, then they want to go to Ohio State, and then look out. And that's just my point. And then I want to say again, you have a great show. And I'm really glad that I got through to you. And I'm a Michigan boy. I loathe Ohio State, but I'll be listening to you till I die. And that's just the way I think.
Well, thank you so much for that. That's very nice. And it's people like you that keep me on here and keep us going.
Yeah. And next year, if we're not going to beat you when I say you, Ohio State, but if we do, I'll be putting 1 million comments, and I'll be calling you up all day.
You should.
But I don't think that's going to happen. But continue having a great show, Mark. And I don't know how to do this. This is frustrating, and I'm very intelligent. I don't know how to send money. And I asked my brother. It's not real simple just to say, okay, I want to send a guy 20 or 50 bucks, and I don't know how to do it. Who do I talk to send money to your program?
There's a few different things you can do. If you want to go through YouTube, there's a dollar sign at the bottom of our chat. So if you look at the live chat with all the comments, there should be a dollar sign down there, and you punch that, and then you just fill in the amount. And then if you'd like to make some kind of comment, or you can just go
Will they take it off my debit card? Will they take it off my debit card? I can just put my debit card number in there. Is that what they do?
I believe
I'll do that.
I've done it for other shows myself, and yeah, I think it's been so long since with me having a YouTube account, they just take it out of what I make. But anyway, or you can bypass YouTube, and you can go through Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. Just go to MarkRogersTV.
Yeah, I know people that are really intelligent. I'll just ask them, because I do want to donate, even though if my friends heard me talking to you, this is Ohio State territory. Doesn't matter. I've always said this. I'm in enemy territory, but I love your show, and keep up the good work. I listen to you as often as I can, and I like to listen to some of your callers. It's Sunday. Sunday night. That's why I'm talking to you right now, and you have a great show, because if you were how can I say this in a nice way? If you were ignorant with college football, I wouldn't waste my time. But you are right on. There's about 95% that I believe of what you say. You're only wrong 5%. In the years that I've listened to you, and I'm a Michigan boy, that's incredible. And I agree with you. But that's my point, and I'll get off the phone. Other people can call. Great show, Mark, and keep up the good work.
Well, I appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Very kind words, and that's what keeps me going. So thank you so much for that. Have a great night. Call back anytime.
And thank you, Mark, and keep it going. See ya.
The one thing I'll say about, and I believe that was Seminole. I believe that was, he identified himself at the beginning, and I apologize because I remember his story from Eastern Michigan and playing in the big house and all of that the other time that we spoke. But the one thing I'll say about people calling up and talking about other things and not college football is that, we've got a very focused channel here on college football. I want people to understand when they come here, they're not going to hear me talk about watering my plants today and taking my mom to the grocery store or going to whatever movie last night. It's just not what I'm going to do. But there are people from time to time that let me know they would like to hear more of that. They want to hear whatever makes me tick or whatever I'm into other than college football. And they want to hear that. So it's a difficult balance, because I know that if I get on here and I go on about my day or whatever I'm interested in other than college football, that's going to drive a certain number of people away. But on the other hand, I think most successful, whether it be YouTubers, podcasters, just personalities, allow people to start to get to know them as people and what they enjoy and what they like and what they're like and their personality and all of that. So there's a balance there. All right, we're going to take this next call, but we got our guy James. So we see James sporadically, but James is a huge and knowledgeable Buckeyes fan, of course, James Warner. He makes this comment about Nebraska beating Penn State 35-0. That's good memory. James, if I'm not mistaken, I would not put my mortgage on this, but I'm pretty good with scores. And I believe the final in the 83 Kickoff Classic was Nebraska over Penn State 44-6. You guys could check me on that. I believe it was 44-6. All right. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, and still I'm going to unveil the best football matchups of the first round of the NCAA tournament. And if anybody wants to hear my NCAA tournament memories, whether those are as a fan, when I was a huge fan of college basketball, believe me, there was a time when we could go through the top 25 in college basketball and go through every team. And I knew on average 4 out of 5 starters on every team. But that was in 1990, 95. That's not today. I bet I actually don't even know one player in college basketball today, even though I could share some college basketball viewing from this afternoon. So I did watch college basketball this afternoon with a few friends, and I could let all of you know how that went. But we'll take our next call in the meantime. Thanks for calling the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's the real MVP. How you doing?
The real MVP. I am doing just fine. What's going on?
Well, nothing much. You know, it's basketball season for Kentucky fans, and it's the most important time of the year. That means for a lot of us.
Sure.
So you were talking about football, basketball matchup, and there was one matchup in the bracket
Yes.
that I thought, you know what, that's a clear football matchup,
Mm-hmm.
and I would love to see it. And that's Miami versus USC.
There you go. So I listed the real MVP. I went through each region and I came up with what I consider to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 at least decent football matchups. But that was the one that just, as soon as I hit that one, I thought, okay, that's not going to be topped. That's the game. Yes.
And I would like to ask you is how awesome would that be in 3 years' time if they were in the national championship game?
How great would it be?
Oh yeah, how great would that be?
You're a Kentucky fan. I don't know what you're expecting. Do you want your Kentucky team, reasonably speaking, of course you want them to play at that kind of level in an SEC championship game?
I mean, as a Kentucky fan, I'm a Kentucky fan, then the second, I'm a college football fan.
Okay.
And I think having USC Miami in the national championship game would help out the sport a lot.
It could.
Now,
yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I'm with you. I understand that logic, that thinking, especially USC, but both of them. Yeah.
Now, as a Kentucky fan, every year I would love to be Alabama with their dynasty, but I have realistic expectations. Are we going to win the East? Probably not. Would it be nice to win it once in a while? Yeah. But I don't mind finishing second every year to Georgia. That's just the way it is for a second tier focused sport in football.
You know,
so let me ask you about
what?
What?
If you don't mind, I want to ask you a question before you ask me a question, and that's why you're here. But since you are a faithful viewer who often has great ideas, calls me on a regular basis, and of course we're getting into and I can tell once we get into late February into early March, and especially when we get to conference tournaments, and now for the next couple of weeks, my views go way down, and I get it. I understand people are focused on basketball. And even the biggest college football fans just figure, hey, college football, we can talk about it for the next 5 months. I want to watch the tournament. So I get it. So I don't know anything about what's going on in college basketball right now. But you know what I was thinking? I was thinking maybe I should just open things up. And when we have some of these late night college basketball nights, like we're going to have starting on Thursday, I just open it up and we just sit here and you guys can educate me on college basketball and we'll watch the games together. And if we want to mix it up with some football talk, whatever it is, and I may just open it up and we may just do some watch parties.
I think that'd be great. And if you want to get a little more specific in the idea,
yeah,
I think it would be helpful for your team channel if you opened them up to a watch party.
You are a smart man. That seems like an obvious decision, but that one didn't hit me.
Like, for instance, especially here's a perfect example. I don't know how much of the bracket you know, but Notre Dame, your channel, has 973 subscribers right now.
They do.
They play in the first 4 games.
Oh, yeah.
Which means they will be the only game on national television.
I saw that against Rutgers.
And that, by the way, that would also be a somewhat good football matchup. Is Notre Dame Rutgers? Now,
yeah, Notre Dame Rutgers in the winter takes on Alabama. Yeah, I marked that one down.
But in terms of football and basketball, I think that'd be good is if you opened up your team channel and maybe you get just a guy who talks about the sport in general on there to talk about the team. I don't know how that would work because I know most of the people you have are football guys.
They are, but most of them are football and basketball guys. You know, like the Ohio State guys. They're all basketball writers too.
Okay. So I think that's something you can do. But, I mean, how are you going to fill out a bracket this year, Mark? Because I saw one of your things is to convince you to watch March Madness.
I don't know the last time I filled out a bracket. It's been almost 10 years. I would just be guessing. I would just be going by the seeds. And maybe taking a few guesses here and there. What's Kentucky this year? A 4 seed, I'm going to guess.
2.
A 2. Oh, they're a 2. I saw that they lost in the SEC semifinal yesterday.
Well, he lost to a 3 seed in Tennessee. Gonzaga, Arizona, Kansas, and Baylor are your 1 seeds.
Okay.
So, you know, it has a lot of, you know, West Coast representation, which college football is dying for. Has a lot of that. With the top 4 seeds.
Yes. Yeah. That's big. Yep.
So, you know, one of the reasons, Mark, maybe you should watch the tournament or you should upload videos is because you can get those keywords in those videos, which means you'll get more viewers. Like you upload a game, after USC plays Miami, you can upload videos on the USC and Miami channel, and maybe you'll get a few more viewers because people are looking for USC and Miami content.
I could do a quick study on these teams. You know, it's not like I've never watched a basketball game in my life. You know, I used to watch a ton. I did cover this thing for about 7 years, and I've been to Final Fours and NCAA tournament games.
I think that would be great for you. What do you normally do for March Madness?
Nothing. 0. Ignore it.
No.
Talk football constantly.
Okay. And the reason you're not doing it is because of the views. Or the views are going down during this month.
Oh, the reason I'm considering doing some basketball? Yeah. I'm running a business. Yeah. I'm not going to try to trick anyone or fool anyone, but at the same time, just because it would be fun. Like, I don't dislike basketball. I think that impression gets out there just because if somebody brings it up, I say, yeah, we're a football channel. We don't talk about basketball, those other things. I watched basketball incessantly for years and years and years and basically decades. And I have, are you familiar with for example, the Bryce Drew Valparaiso shot against Ole Miss? It's one of the shots that they show every year when they talk March Madness. I was sitting on the media row right behind the coach's bench, right behind the players on the first row of the media. And I had a perfect view. The baseline was right there. I saw the pass was being thrown like feet in front of me down the court. Like I've been whether as a professional working the games or as a fan. I love at a previous time in my life, loved March Madness for a long, long time. I just I started doing this and I just kind of lost interest in it. And I don't like, you probably get this, the real MVP, because we talk quite a bit. You can probably imagine I'm not the type of sports fan that likes to be ignorant about something. So I tend to lose interest when I don't know what's going on. So when I knew the teams and I knew the players, well, I just went right into conference tournaments and in March Madness, and I knew exactly what was going on and who was good and who wasn't. And now I'm just flipping it on and I'm just watching a basketball game and I don't know anybody. And it tends to turn me off because I like to be knowledgeable about something.
Well, it seems like from just the conversation I have with you, is you're driven by the knowledge. You want to learn as much as possible, and you can set this up as kind of like a challenge for you to figure out all these different teams in a short amount of time and figure out who their coaches is and who their best player is. Because, I mean, you're talented enough and you work hard enough to do it.
And it's funny.
I mean, some of these teams.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that it's funny that you bring that up because of the lack of longevity of certain teams and coaches, like this afternoon. I'll tell this story after you get off the phone because I don't want to bore you, but I'll bore everybody at the same time. And it has nothing to do with this particular conversation, but I did watch basketball this afternoon. And it was funny because there are certain coaches, because I haven't been in the loop for the last 10 years. I don't know who they are. Maybe I've heard their name, but I don't recognize them. I don't know anything about them. And then there are other coaches. When John Calipari pops on the screen, shoot, I interviewed the guy one time. It's like I can suddenly go back and it's 2005 if I see John Calipari on the sideline, because I can connect to that because I remember him. I remember him at UMass. I remember him at Kentucky. I remember him in Memphis. And so then I suddenly kind of go back to, okay, I'm connected to this sport. I like it. But other times it's like, yeah, I don't even know who that is. To me, Arizona, Lute Olson, what happened? Who's this guy? Well, obviously Lute Olson has passed away and has not coached them for a long time, but there's a huge disconnect depending on who I see on the screen.
I imagine Memphis would be one of those teams that you have a disconnect to.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Memphis or how good they are or who coaches them. Is it Penny Hardaway?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I did hear that whenever he took the job, 4 or 5 years ago?
Something about that.
Yeah.
The recruiting shot up the rankings a whole lot.
Yeah, I bet.
They were like, and I'm going to make a connection here about back to college football. He reminds me of Deion Sanders, an energetic guy who gets tons of great recruits at a mid-major to below top-tiered school.
Yeah, I can see that.
And also, did you hear the news about Deion Sanders and what happened to him?
Yes. Yeah, I did. That's too bad.
Yeah, I thought it was important to mention that. I just feel sorry for him, and thoughts and prayers are with Deion and his family.
Yeah, that's something. When you talk about somebody's health, you can have all the wealth, you can have all the fame, you can have all the people giving you attention that you could ever want. But as soon as you have a limb amputated, something like that, well, nothing can replace that.
Right. Well, it goes back to the old saying, health is wealth.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and the final thing I'll ask you about that's related to college football is Jim Harbaugh was recently in the news a few days ago because he said he wanted his goal was to always, his heart was in Michigan, basically.
Yes.
Does the clown circus ever stop at Michigan?
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So
he's arrogant.
Yep.
I think he believes way higher than himself he actually is. I think he believes in Michigan as the program, and I think he thinks he's so much better than anybody else they can even possibly get that he can basically do whatever the heck he wants. And he's basically made Michigan into a second-tier program. Because now Michigan, if you're just an average college football fan, it's just viewed as a destination stop. At least that's the way Jim Harbaugh's treating it.
The real MVP, if you recall, I believe we had a discussion, you and I, right after Jim Harbaugh decided, or it was decided for him, that he was coming back to Michigan, and they announced the extension, the contract extension that was unnecessary. And we were talking about it, you and I, and you were like, what does this even mean? And I said, well, it doesn't mean anything. In actuality, it means a lot in terms of perception, or they hope it means a lot in perception. But in actuality, what happens 7 years from now and adding an additional year to his contract means zero. What they're saying is they want to give this perception that he's committed to the university. Therefore, he's signing a contract. And they're also happy with him because you give coaches extensions when you are happy with their performance. And I thought of that, and I thought of our conversation when he made the comment that you just alluded to, because he was basically trying to make a statement to future recruits that I'm here for good, and I'm trying to prove this to you. I'm not going anywhere, at least over the life of this contract. And he very much wants to emphasize that.
Well, Mark, yeah, I'm a personal believer that actions speak louder than words. And I think it's going to be very hard within that locker room and within the staff for them to buy into Jim Harbaugh going forward.
I tend to think that his statement that he made, whether ineffective or not, about being committed to Michigan through the life of this contract and the token of signing an extra year onto this contract, which again is meaningless because no recruits need to see that, because that goes well beyond when they're going to be around. So it's not like a guy where we see it all the time where a coach has 1 year left on his contract and they extend him so he can recruit. Harbaugh didn't need that. This is taking like this 7 years down the road. But I do think that was important, or if he's effective in communicating it, to say, I am here. The rest of what he had to say about, does it get any better than this? And I'm going to win a national championship and we're scary good and all that. I am totally on board with you. Just prove it. I don't need to hear that you're scary good. I don't think George is buying that right now. So you just lost like 6 of your best players. I don't know how scary good you're going to be this season.
I think Michigan will take maybe 2 or 3 steps, maybe 2 steps back. I see 7-5 more likely than 10-2 for Michigan.
Well, they do play a joke of a non-conference schedule.
Well, I understand that, but they're still in the Big Ten. It's not easy out there.
Sure.
And they got some hard games. I think 10-2 is impossible for Michigan this year. I think Ohio State will beat them for sure. I think Michigan State's better than them. I think they can lose to Iowa this year as well. That's 3 losses right there. I think this perception that we have that everything's kind of going to be all right with Michigan, I think the bottom has fallen out somewhat, and I don't think people have realized that until they get onto the field in like October.
We shall find out.
I could be wrong.
I think they'll be good, but they're not scary good by any stretch.
They're not making the playoffs. They're probably not making a New Year's Six bowl game.
Okay. I would agree with the first comment for sure. I will not be picking Michigan to go to the playoff. I don't see that right now.
Well, do you think they're going to make a New Year's Six bowl game?
I think they could.
I think Michigan State's more likely than them.
Michigan State has more of its. They have more of their top line. They get their quarterback back and their top receiver, and they brought in some really good portal talent. That's a close call between those two. I would still tend to favor Michigan.
Right. Well, Michigan State did beat Michigan last year.
Yep, the last 2 years.
With Michigan's best team ever. Yeah. So, and Jim Harbaugh always found a way to lose big games before last year, whether it was to Wisconsin, to Ohio State, Michigan State. There was that narrative going around. Now, it ended last year, but I think the new narrative will be, well, last year was just a outlier.
That's what's going to be fascinating, because this is going to tell us whether Michigan has arrived and they are here to challenge Ohio State every year. And again, I made this statement the other day, and a few Michigan people were surprised that I said, if Michigan beats Ohio State head-to-head again, unless it's some monumental upset where Michigan's 7-5 and Ohio State's 11-1, and it's just an upset. Of course, I'm not going to view them as overtaking Ohio State if they're not even in the race. But I'm talking about if the two teams are comparable and they're fighting for a championship and Michigan wins that game, then I will be the first one to say Michigan is the top program in the Big Ten. If they've done it 2 years in a row, for me, they will have overtaken Ohio State to be the best program in the Big Ten.
That's a big statement. I'm not sure if I would go that far, but
if they win the Big Ten 2 years in a row and beat Ohio State 2 years in, I'm going to say they're the best program in the conference.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
They have to go do it.
But Mark, when was the last time Michigan has beaten Ohio State at Ohio State?
2000.
22 years ago.
Yes. They've lost 11 straight. Is that what that comes out to? Maybe 10 straight.
I mean, how can you even be a big rivalry? I mean, that's not really a big rivalry at that point. It's just a big brother versus a little brother.
It's kind of similar to Alabama and Georgia. Even though Georgia won the one of the two games, of course, they won the important one, as it turned out, won the national championship. I still consider Alabama to be the best program, not just in the country, but also on their way to being the best in the country. That includes, of course, the SEC. And even though Georgia is the king of this particular season, that Alabama, to me, is the best program in the SEC still. Now, if Georgia beats them again next year, I'm not going to be as quick to proclaim Georgia overtaking Alabama as quick as I would Michigan, Ohio State, because they did split 2 games last year. It's not like the Ohio State-Michigan narrative where they played once and Michigan beat them by 2 scores. They played twice and they split.
Well, Mark, that's all I got for you really today. And I can't wait for your basketball stream.
Well, we will look at that. I'm not going to guarantee that yet, but I'll look at the game, see where they're on, and that might be a good thing to pursue. That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, just do it for your team channels to start out with. Okay. Don't overwork yourself.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Have a good night.
You do the same.
All right. Before we take this call, I want to remind everyone that we've got a Discord available for everyone. Go to Patreon, 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 search MarkRogersTV, sign up for Patreon. I get you a Discord link and you can join the conversation right there. We've got about 50, 55, something like that on Discord. We talk college football. It's a big chat room. If you're not familiar with Discord, I was not as well 2 months ago, but I have been told that's the way to go. So we've got a Discord and we've got a live chat and we talk college football. And I get on there every day. Now, I apologize for anyone who will catch me on that for the last few days. I've been out of town and I've not jumped on there for the last few days. I've not done a whole lot of work since Thursday. But we're back at it here. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, how's it going, Mark? This is Emmanuel.
Hey, Emmanuel.
Hey there. I wanted to say that I agree 100% with not the previous caller, but the caller previous to him in regards to your patience. And, regardless of us callers, no matter how much we steer the conversation sideways, you're very patient and kind.
I do appreciate that. I find that a little funny because I do try to be patient, and I try to strike a balance between allowing us to have a conversation. I hear call-in shows where the callers just are able to make a comment or ask a quick question. They get cut off and they kind of move on to the next caller. So I like for us to have a conversation. Now, if people start to repeat themselves and just start to rant and ramble about the same stuff, then I kind of say, okay, you made your point. Let's move on. So, but I find it somewhat amusing about the patience comment, because there's been a few times recently where I kind of lost my patience and started yelling at somebody in particular. But anyway, thank you.
All right, great. Well, my question this evening is, who are maybe 2 or 3 players that will be the most exciting players to watch next season? Do we have a potential like Reggie Bush, Johnny Manziel, larger than life college football player next season?
Okay. Good question. Exciting players. I'm trying not to be very generic to list just obvious choices. So I believe that Xavier Worthy at Texas is an exciting player. If he gets good quarterback play, the ball's going to be in his hands a lot. He's a tremendous talent. He proved to be the #1 receiver at Texas his first year. Xavier Worthy, the former Michigan commit, put him down. Man, I'm going to stay with the same team because Bijan Robinson did not have a great season last year. His offensive line is awful, but hopefully getting better. And Bijan Robinson's a very talented running back, and he would be near the top of my list as well. Jackson Smith-Njigba is a pretty obvious choice for anyone who wasn't familiar with his talents. If they watched the Rose Bowl, of course, he became a star. And so put him down, the Ohio State wide receiver. From a defensive side, I'm stating the obvious here, but Will Anderson's probably the best player in the country, let alone the best defender in the country. So Will Anderson at Alabama, just in regards to causing havoc, being that kind of guy. Exciting players. It's going to be kind of fun to watch Bo Nix run around at Oregon. That could be interesting. And Caleb Williams in a different jersey at USC, and hopefully igniting West Coast football. But in terms of being, maybe I just stumbled upon the guy that could be the next Johnny Manziel / who did you put in that Cam Newton, Tim Tebow bucket?
Yeah, Reggie Bush, those kind of larger than life personalities.
Yeah, a guy that we're talking about 15 years later. In addition to just the game, maybe it's Caleb Williams at USC as a quarterback who might have enough around him and with a head coach that he has to put USC football back on the map.
Yeah, I sure hope so. And I guess the second part to that, not to steer it, talking about Reggie Bush, growing up being an SC fan, of course, I cheer for SC and the Hogs, which is a really random combination. But Reggie Bush, that may have been, I've never seen a college football player that had that kind of impact. Is there anyone that comes close to him, or who would you say had that kind of impact? I mean, the guy was the freak of freaks.
I remember watching Reggie Bush in particular in a game. I don't think it was super early in his career, but I knew him and knew how good he was, but I guess it was a game against Fresno State, a late night game that
Yeah, I remember that one. It came very close.
yeah.
He won that game for them.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that's had that kind? At least, is there any running back that's had his type of career? Because I don't remember seeing a more explosive player than Reggie Bush.
Have had his type of career?
Mm-hmm.
If you're just talking about statistically, there have been all sorts
just
of players.
Overall, just his.
In terms
yeah,
of,
not necessarily statistically,
okay.
but
yeah.
just on the
right.
field.
Yeah, we'll take
how he could take over.
Sure, we'll take stats out of it. Just in terms of the guys that look different than everybody else on the field, Barry Sanders comes to mind, obviously. Even in the NFL, he did. Barry Sanders just looked like he could do things that nobody else could do. Ted Ginn at Ohio State, the first time I ever saw him cut loose, I thought, this guy looks different. He just has a different stride, a different lean. Ted Ginn was one of the few guys that it never appeared as though there was a corner that he couldn't. When I mean corner, I don't mean cornerback. I mean the actual corner on the field, on the formation, that he couldn't outrun. It looked like guys would have the angle on him and he would still run by them and be too fast for them to get the angle on him. Percy Harvin was kind of like that as well, but he was more jitterbug. Ginn was more just straight line, just burn people. Percy Harvin, Barry Sanders were more in the Reggie Bush mold of, cutting on a dime. Who was a very fun player to watch, who then went to the next level and was a crazy good kick returner, was Dexter McCluster with Ole Miss.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Now, two guys that could just bury a defensive back or a light linebacker that were kind of ahead of their time physically were, of course, Herschel Walker and Bo Jackson. They looked different just because, and Eric Dickerson, when he hit the scene, these guys were just monsters that had the speed that, there were big guys before that, but they didn't have that type of blazing speed where guys didn't want to get in their way because they were strong as bulls, but also running so fast that they would just step on guys.
Yeah, and one guy that comes to mind on the defensive side was LeVar Arrington.
Yeah.
You remember him?
Oh, absolutely. LeVar Arrington, there was a game that they played against Minnesota in 1999 where he just had a tremendous game.
They lost that game.
Yeah, they eventually lost the game. They got out to a big lead in part to him just dominating the game, blocking kicks, doing all sorts of crazy things. He had a sack on Ohio State and Steve Belisari that same season where it was almost similar to what we saw, the famous play with Roy Williams of Texas against, or for Oklahoma against Texas, where he just leaped over the offensive lineman to sack Chris Sims. LeVar Arrington had some plays like that. Yeah, he was different looking than everybody else on the field. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, he seemed to have another gear of athleticism compared to everyone else.
So did
One
Sean
of the
Taylor.
things that he used to do was,
Taylor looked different.
Sean Taylor, from what I hear.
Yeah.
From what I hear, he was the freak of freaks in that freakish Miami defense.
Yes.
He was the best athlete. That's saying something. But talking about LeVar Arrington, he used to push the kickers, the punters. Do you remember that?
Used to push
He would purposely run into them and throw them down. numerous times. He would start fighting with the kicker, with the punter. He would start fighting them on the field.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it should be on YouTube. He would constantly, after the punter punted, he would go up to them and push them to the ground. I don't know why he did it, but he did it in numerous games, if not most of the ones I saw him playing. He was constantly I don't know why it wasn't a flag, but he would go up to them and just throw them to the ground for no apparent reason. But yeah, that was something. Well, Mark, I'm going to let you go, but hey, thanks for the memories. And if I think of any others, I'm sure I'll let you know.
Thanks, Emmanuel. You have a good night. Thank you so much for the call.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Good night.
Our number's down at the bottom of the screen on the ticker there, 860-499-3332. And actually, before I take this next call real quick, because I wanted to touch upon, and I'll do this quickly to get to these other calls, I wanted to touch upon the matchups that I consider to be the best football matchups of the first round NCAA basketball games. So the first one that caught me was in the West region. We've got Boise State and Memphis, of course, two of the great group of 5 football teams historically and in recent times. And then this does not make the cut in terms of the way I set it up, but hey, talking about two of the worst. It could be a good game, or at least a close game. Let's not say a good game. It could be a close game between UConn and New Mexico State. Of course, the Huskies have some new life with Jim Mora now as the head coach. That's a West regional game, as well as, of course, the aforementioned Notre Dame Rutgers winner taking on Alabama. And then, of course, in the East region, we've got Texas, Virginia Tech. Does anyone remember the 1996 Sugar Bowl? Texas and Virginia Tech, of course, Texas and Virginia Tech coming off disappointing seasons. Virginia Tech was mauled in its bowl appearance by Maryland, 44-10? That sounds right. Texas didn't even make it to a bowl game in Sark's first year. I'm going to have my coaches ranking. So after we finish our all-time program rankings and that series here at the Voice of College Football, my coaches rankings will be coming out after that. So I've already worked on coaches rankings for every conference except the SEC. I just have to work on you know what? I actually did. I just didn't take my notes on the SEC coaches. I am fully stocked and ready and prepared to post coaches rankings videos, but we got to get our all-time program rankings in as well, and we will do that. Okay. In the South, you got Houston coming off a 12-1 campaign, of course. Dana Hogerson at coach, taking on UAB, a good team. The Blazers beat BYU in a bowl game last year. Then we've got Michigan as the underdog in the basketball sense, taking on Colorado State in the South region. Midwest region, LSU and Iowa State. Nice football game right there. Brian Kelly, Matt Campbell. Yeah, there we go. Brock Purdy's got to be replaced. Of course, LSU just signed Jaden Daniels, who will probably win the quarterback job over Miles Brennan. And then, of course, the creme de la creme is in the Midwest region with USC and Miami. Just thought I would show what I deem to be the best would-be football matchups out of the first round NCAA basketball games. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Michael. How you doing tonight, sir?
I am doing just fine, Michael. How are you?
Not too bad for a Sunday. Hey, got a couple ones for you. One, I'm looking in the East bracket right now. How about Texas and Virginia Tech? How good of a football game would that have been, you think? Back during the Beamer and Mike Brown days,
well,
Frank
sure.
Beamer and stuff like that.
I just mentioned that. They played in the 96 Sugar Bowl, Texas and Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't a very good night for the Longhorns, was it?
No, not at all. 28-10. I think that was the final.
Mm-hmm. Another one, even though they're not, I think the only way they could happen is if maybe it's the Final Four or something. But back in the early 80s or late 70s, early 80s, when Purdue played UCLA in football and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, UCLA won both times. Might be. I can't remember. I'm sure they was pretty good games back then too.
Purdue and UCLA in the early 80s.
Or like 1979, 1980.
Let me look those up. I don't remember those games. Now, UCLA played Ohio State in 1979 and 80, and Purdue played, UCLA played Michigan in 81 and 82. So did they play another Big Ten opponent? Really?
1979 and 1980.
Okay. I don't remember those
the largest
games.
margin of victory. They played several times. They played 3 times, and I guess they played 3 times and stuff like that. In 79, it was a 10-point win for UCLA. In 1980, it was a 9-point win for UCLA.
Okay.
But I'm trying to remember who was on Terry Donahue's team back then.
Oh, sure it was. He took over in 76.
Right after Dick Vermeil.
Yeah, Dick Vermeil won the Rose Bowl in 75. The 75 season, beat Ohio State in a huge upset. Ohio State was about to win the national championship, and UCLA pulled off the upset with Dick Vermeil, and that vaulted him into the Philadelphia Eagles job, and then Terry Donahue took over at UCLA.
But I'm trying to remember, was Terry on his staff then, or did he come from somewhere else?
I'm almost positive he was on the staff. I'd have to verify that. This is a very interesting non-conference schedule here, Michael, for UCLA in 1980. They played in 3 consecutive weeks, 3 Big Ten teams. They played Purdue, Wisconsin, and Ohio State.
And I'm pretty sure they won all 3 games, didn't they?
They sure did.
Was it convincingly against Wisconsin?
The close game was against Purdue, of course, 23-14. And that Purdue team, as you well know, went 9-3. They were a good team. Wisconsin was a 4-7 team that year, and UCLA won 35-0. Now, the Ohio State game I remember very well. Ohio State was ranked number 1 in the country, and UCLA went into Columbus and won 17-0.
Yep, not too bad. Because I'm trying to think who was some of the players that on the UCLA team back then.
Wow. Would that have been,
or am I digging too far?
80? Oh my goodness. So I'm trying to think of their safety. They had a great Kenny Easley would have been the safety. Who was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Who else did they have that was really good on those teams? That would have been after Wendell Tyler. He was already with the Rams at that point. I don't think Gaston Green was quite there at that point. I know if I look them up, I'm going to be like, Mark, I'm going to kick myself for not remembering a ton of guys that I know. The year before, they beat Purdue, as you mentioned, by 10. They beat Wisconsin by 25, and then they lost to Ohio State at the Rose Bowl in 79.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'm trying to figure out, I seen a sign there by your window. It usually says "Live, Laugh, Love," but does that say "Live, Laugh, and Bark"?
So I'm at my sister's house, and she loves her dog.
Okay.
She loves her dog. Says "Live, Laugh, and Bark," not "barf," as somebody put in the comment section. But yes, I'm at my sister's house, and yes, that's in honor of her dog. Yes.
Not bad. I was going to show you're just spending time with family right now.
I sure am, and will be for a while.
I hope everything's all right.
Everything's fine. Just have to take care of a few things, but everything's fine. So, oh my goodness, yes. I'm going to spit out 2 names that you're going to know, I believe for sure. Tom Ramsey was the quarterback at UCLA. I remember him playing and beating Michigan in the 82 Rose Bowl, but I would not have thought that he was there in 80, but he was. And Freeman McNeil, the great Jets running back, was their leading rusher.
But I thought he was there like 81, 82, and 83, though.
I'm looking at the 1980 UCLA team, and Freeman McNeil had over 1,000 yards rushing.
Mm-hmm. Not bad. I was just wondering stuff like that. I wonder what some of those players, former great players, are doing these days. Because Purdue had like of course they had Mark Herman, Barb Burrows, Dave Young, Keenan Turner on offense. On defense, and you had a couple others that escaped me off the top of my head and stuff like that. But Purdue was pretty stacked on both sides of the ball back then too.
Yes. Yeah, Purdue was a really good program.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one last thing before I let you go. I know it says like for the address and stuff like that. But the only thing I'm trying to figure out is the 1070. Is that like a box number, or is that like your actual apartment number and stuff like that? Because you list the street, then the box number, and then of course the city you're from and stuff. I'm just trying to figure out if he has the street. Why would he include like a box number?
Yeah, I'm not.
Or is that just where you go to get to it?
Michael, as you can understand, I'm not sending out my address, my personal address on anything. No, that is not my address.
Oh no, I understand. I was just wondering stuff like. No, I understand. I was just trying to figure out. That's interesting stuff like that. But no, can we still send stuff there, like men's helmets and stuff like that?
Yes, sir.
All right, sounds good. All right, well, enjoy the time with your sister and your fur nephew or fur niece, and so you'll be on later this week after some of the NCAA tournament games. In
I believe so, sir. We'll see. I'll have to work out.
All right, did Mark take
with the schedule. Thanks so much, Michael.
All right, then. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Next up, and do I recognize this phone number? Next up here, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Well, I thought you got a new studio. I was going to go ahead and compliment you. I thought it was looking pretty good over there.
Well,
pretty snazzy.
For as much as it has been upgraded, when we do go to a new studio, it's not going to necessarily take on this kind of decor. So I think we'll be a little bit more football oriented.
Well, I was going to help you out. That 79 UCLA team had Freeman McNeil, the safety on that UCLA team was Kenny Easley, who played a number of years with Seattle Seahawks.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really good player.
Yeah, we covered that ground.
No. Okay. I didn't know if you mentioned Easley. I know you mentioned Freeman McNeil, who was on that 79 team with UCLA that year, was the tailback, was a really good player. But I didn't know if you mentioned Easley. Yeah, that was a big win at 79. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, those are the first two guys that came to mind. Now, Tom Ramsey, a quarterback, I remember him playing Michigan in the Rose Bowl in 82, but I would not have guessed that he was the quarterback 2 years before that.
Okay.
Who played for the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, he was with the Patriots?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that was a big win for the Buckeyes in 79, kind of to start the season that year. I think UCLA was fairly highly ranked that year, kind of got that season going for them that year, as you probably remember, Mark.
Oh, I watched it. Keith Jackson was on the call on that one. Yes, at the Rose Bowl, and Art Schlechter touchdown pass to Paul Campbell in the final minute to win that one. And UCLA, actually, they were supposed to be a good team, but I'm guessing if I look up their record for that year, I'm going to guess they went 5-6. I don't think they were very good when it was all said and done.
Yeah. Well, like you said, they definitely got the revenge the next year when they came to Columbus and shut out the Buckeyes. That was the year. Did the Buckeyes also lose to Florida State that year in non-conference?
That was in 81 and 82.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
They went 9-2 that year in 1980 in the regular season. They lost to UCLA, and then they lost to the team up north. That was a frustrating
Anthony
game.
Carter caught the only touchdown in that game, didn't he, Mark?
Quite a frustrating game, yes. They only put 3 points on the board. My boy went like 8 for 26 in that one. That Michigan defense was that pass rush was all over him all day.
Yeah, Bo won his only one of his only 2 Rose Bowls that year, I believe. He beat Washington up in the Rose Bowl that year.
Yeah, what was it? 2-8 for Bo, 2-10, something in that range.
2-8. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 81, they actually played Florida State, and then they played John Elway in Stanford out in Palo Alto to start the year. Went out there and beat them.
Yeah, then the 82 season got off to a horrible start after 2 wins. They lost to Elway, came back and beat them in the closing minutes at Ohio Stadium. I believe it was 23-20. And that was my first real look at I believe the Elway game the year before in 81. Now I'm preceding you. I know that I'm predating your time, but that I don't believe was a game that I could have seen live. I know that I watched all the games on replay. They had the games on replay on public TV back then, so I watched every Ohio State game. And then of course, if the ones we could watch live, I watched them again late night, and that was a treat back then. My goodness, that was a treat. Either way, to be able to see every game, but certainly the second Stanford game, the Elway comeback final drive TD, a harbinger of things to come, of course. That was an ABC game, so that was on TV. And then neither Florida State game was on TV.
Right. Yeah, by the way, when did they move the contract to CBS, Mark, when they started doing the Big Ten games? Was that like 83 or was that 84?
The 83, hang on just a second, because it's usually pretty easily tracked by me remembering who aired the Michigan game, but the 83 Ohio State-Michigan game was the only Ohio State-Michigan game that, at least during my lifetime, I was not able to watch because that was not on TV.
Okay. Yeah, because the first one I watched in '86 was on CBS.
Yes,
because CBS had the Big Ten. You know, it's crazy. CBS now has had the SEC contract for like 100 years, but then they had the Big Ten games back in the '80s. You know, which is, I find interesting.
Yeah.
When you
it was fascinating because Brent Musburger and Ara Parsegian would do all these Ohio State Michigan games and Ohio State Iowa and all these great Big Ten games. Yeah. So yes, I grew up with Ohio State Michigan on ABC. They had been on ABC since the beginning of televised college football. And then the 80 through the 81 game. The 82 game was the first CBS Ohio State Michigan game. Yes, Gary Williams had a big day, and oh my goodness, how am I blanking on Tim Spencer at running back had a huge game in the rain in Columbus, and this is where the schedule got in the way, Dave. That Ohio State team finished 7-1 in the Big Ten. And Michigan finished 8-1 in the Big Ten. Now, how does that make any sense whatsoever? And so Ohio State won the head-to-head, but Michigan still technically won the Big Ten and went to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah. That was kind of a strange. I vaguely remember that. As I say, my first kind of full year was '86. I do remember '85 a little bit. The big game in '85 was the win over, Chuck Long and Ronnie Harmon and Larry Station and #1 Iowa in the rain in Columbus. And I remember CBS doing that game because that was Musburger and I think Parsegian, who was the combination that did those games. Because it was interesting. '87, by the way, the contract flipped back to ABC.
Yes,
because Lynn Swan and Gary Bender did that the Earl Headband game up there.
Yeah,
and then ABC actually had the contract for the Ohio State Michigan game all the way through the J.T. Barrett spot game in '16, and Fox has had it since from '17 on.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting how that goes. By the way, are you into the NCAA tournament, Mark? I didn't know you were a fan. Are you just trying to kind of use the analogy for college football?
I'm a bit torn, Dave. So I know that if I was forced to watch the NCAA tournament, it's not that I would be writhing in pain or anything. I would enjoy it. I just have gotten so far removed from college basketball. I just doesn't even, I don't even think about it. Where I used to just, I loved college basketball. So, what happened today was I was out with a few friends and we went to lunch and then we went back to my friend's. My friend was coming up from Columbus, so we were actually hanging out at his mom's house. And for some reason, I didn't care what we were watching, but they're big sports fans, so they started flipping around to the various games. And I find this very interesting. And hopefully, my friend's brother is not watching, so because I'm going to poke a little fun at him just in a certain way, because he's just he's a huge sports fan, known him forever, and big Browns, Indians, Cavs fan, Buckeyes fan. But
it sounds like me.
So we this is after lunch and he's just flipping around and if this is circa 2005, 1995, pick your year, I am chomping at the, like, give me the remote. Like, I want to control what we're watching here. I want to see, I want to be, watching the Big Ten final, and then I want to be flipping to the SEC final, during breaks and that sort of thing. But he really wanted to watch the Cavs game from the previous night. So we are watching the Cavs Bulls game from the previous night, and he's kind of flipping through the commercials and timeouts. So we're getting through it pretty quickly, but he knows what happened, but he just wants to watch it. So we get done watching that, and he's like, flipping around, looking, what else is on. And I said, I'd like to kind of see the Big Ten championship game. So we were only about 5 minutes into the Purdue Iowa game, and my friend and I we're talking. So we're casually watching the game, and I notice he flips it off after a couple minutes and starts watching the replay of he had taped the Arizona UCLA Pac-12 championship final from the night before. And we're watching that, and I'm thinking, there's live Big Ten championship play on right now, and we're watching a game from last night, and we all know who won. I don't even follow college basketball, and I know that Arizona won. I actually flipped by that game the night before. And I even said to him, I said, do you know who won this game? And he goes, yeah, Arizona won by 8. And I'm thinking, why are we watching this game? The Big Ten championship game's on. And we proceeded to watch the entire UCLA Arizona game recorded from the night before, and just barely caught the tail end of the Iowa Purdue game.
Yeah, the interesting thing with college basketball, and I'm probably like a lot of other people, is I don't get into it really until the conference tournament.
Yeah.
And the tough part for me is because I'm such a football fan and I'm following football pretty much to the end of the season, and that's college and pro, is that, once the NCAA is going on, really I don't start to follow it until the conference tournaments and obviously the NCAA tournament. So I do these brackets and I'll fill them out from time to time. Other than basically knowing the blue blood programs, the Dukes or the Kentuckys or the North Carolinas, the name programs, it's tough for me to fill out a bracket not having watched as much college basketball during the regular season and knowing who the better teams are. So that's the thing that's always made it tough for me. I will say this, the one thing in kind of a college football, college basketball comparison, you do have to say that, kind of the college basketball with having its tournament is the great equalizer in college basketball. Whereas, with college football, we know the 3 or 4 teams that are going to be there at the end of the year. With college basketball, it's that tournament's a great equalizer, and anybody can beat anybody.
Oh yeah, it's more fun. Yeah, it's much more fun from that standpoint. And the game can slip by so fast like, you've seen it a million times where there's a 3-14 matchup and they start playing and, you kick the ball around a few times, you miss a few shots, the other team hits a couple threes, and before you know it, there's 3 minutes left in the first half. You've only played like 35 minutes of basketball, but there's only 3 minutes left in the first half, and the underdog's up 25-19 or something like that, and all of a sudden it's halftime, and the games go by so quickly. It's not like it's just got a different feel than football. It seems like you get time to come back in football. And those 40-minute college basketball games, they can slip by quickly.
Well, basketball's a lot of games of runs. A lot of people say if you watch basically the last 4 minutes of the basketball game, you kind of have the the whole deal there. You know what I mean? Because it usually comes down to that. Whereas football, as well as I do, a few plays early in the game can turn a close game into a blowout. You get a turnover, you get a fumble recovery, special teams, whatever the case might be, and that turns a 13-13 game, 14-14 game into 35-14, let's say, and it's getting away from you.
I think we've had this discussion, Dave, that one of the most deflating outcomes, but the even in the process leading up to the outcome that I've experienced was that Ohio State Michigan State game in 15, because not only did it happen the last play of the game, I could see, and I'm sure I'm not a genius, other people could as well, could see it coming, because Ohio State had the ball like inside its own 5-yard line with like 4 minutes left in the game. And I'm thinking, they can't move the ball. They're not moving the ball. Right. And then they had like a negative play or a penalty or something, and suddenly it's 2nd and 15, or then it's 3rd and 9, and I'm like, they're not converting this, and they're going to be punting the ball out of the end zone, and Michigan State's going to be at like the Ohio State 45 without even returning the ball. And they're just going to run the clock out and kick a field goal. Like you could see it the last 4 minutes of the game.
Sure, especially with the field position. And the crazy thing is Michigan State did it in that game with their 3rd string quarterback, because Connor Cook was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing. It was so crazy the way that game went, because, I thought the only chance they had is if Cook would have played going into that game. And then, of course, he gets hurt. And I'm thinking, oh, man, this could be blowout city. But you know what? Gerdeman makes a very good point, who you do the Buckeye talk with, and we've talked about this before. That Ohio State team was sleepwalking through that season, and, it just really, they finally met a team that had the talent that, could kind of take advantage of their sleepwalking ways through the season. And, it finally caught up with them. I always felt that way about that season. I think Tony's talked about that on Buckeye Talk before, where that was a team that maybe got a little fat and happy and, thought that they could just, roll out the helmets in a lot of games and blow people out. I think you kind of got that vibe that year too, didn't you, Mark?
Sure. And they also, I think, met a team that had the toughness, both physically and mentally, that they weren't intimidated. They knew that they were physically tough enough, and it was the type day and the type game that just kind of dragged down to this, just, between the tackle, just the game should have been played on natural grass in the mud. It was that kind of game that just had that feel that nobody's gonna pick up more than 7 yards on a play in this game. It just was an ugly game. And the Michigan State obviously just took the air out of the ball and just ran the clock, and it was a very quick game too, again.
Well, people have asked me for a while, what's the more disappointing loss, 98 or 15? I always say 98 to Michigan State, because they blew that game, and they were clearly the better team, and they just totally blew that game. That's why I say 15 you kind of saw coming. And I'll say this, I think the 15 team might have been the best team in the country. I know the 98 team was the best team in the country. That's the other difference I would also make about those two. I don't know if you also feel the same way about that, but.
Well, I thought the 98 team was the best team in the country. I believe the 2015 was the best team in the country, but I know it was the most talented roster in the country. But of course, Alabama was playing at an extremely high level that year, and Clemson to a lesser degree. So I'm not as convinced that they would have won the national championship as much as I would have been in 98.
Right. Although Alabama was lucky that freak play happened between Ole Miss and Arkansas, or they wouldn't have even played in the SEC championship game that year.
Yes.
As you pointed out. So I would mention that they did get a little help that year from Arkansas, and I think that was Burt Bielema helped them out with that victory that year. So, hey, Mark, I wanted to ask you are you going to do position rankings coming up as far as like top running backs, quarterbacks, receivers, and all that?
Yeah, I wanted the spring games I wanted to be able to go through the spring season, pick up as much information as I could, and then see the spring games, which during the month of April, I want to be on here as much live on Saturdays as possible after spring games to watch the spring games, maybe even be live during the spring games and do a lot of fun coverage there. And then, I wanted to really go to work on assessing each position after spring ball's over.
Okay, because I was trying to think of like the top quarterbacks coming into this year. Obviously, the top two everybody's going to talk about are Bryce Young and Stroud. But I wonder, you have some names after that, by the way. I know you mentioned Caleb Williams at USC, with Lincoln Riley as his coach. I mean, could have an interesting year there. I don't know if I was just curious to see the other names that are coming to mind if you're putting together a top 10 list this year.
Top 10 list. Well, okay, not in order, but the other guys under consideration would be KJ Jefferson, Arkansas, Hendon Hooker, Tennessee.
Yep. Okay.
Tyler Van Dyke, Miami. Devin Leary, NC State.
Okay.
Aiden O'Connell, Purdue. I'm a big fan.
Okay, that's a good choice, I think.
Be interesting to see where JT Daniels lands. It's intriguing to me that he's visiting Oregon State.
You mentioned Bo Nix earlier, at Oregon. That could be interesting too.
JT Daniels at LSU.
He had a lot of ups and downs at Auburn, though. I always thought, Mark. He had some really good highs, but he had a lot of lows.
Oh
too.
Yeah, but I think he was getting better with his lows. He was thrown into the fire from week one his freshman season, and
right.
Yeah, he made a lot of bad mistakes, kind of ran himself. He was a victim of his own ability as a scrambler, where he ran himself into a lot of bad plays and thought he could do anything. Yeah, that's most of my list right there. I don't know if a guy like a Sean Clifford of Penn State's going to quite push the top 10, but I'll put him on my initial
without Jahan Dotson.
My initial
I don't
list.
know.
Well, what I do try to do, Dave, and I know this is what I'm about to say, I understand is impossible, but this is what I attempt to do. I attempt to try to remove all that.
Well, I think Stroud is really good, but I mean, it did help that he had the best wide receivers in the country last year.
Yes. But I try to remove that. Now, again, I know that it's impossible, but who do you think's the best quarterback in the NFL?
As of right now, I would still probably lean Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
Now that Brady's retired.
So whatever his stats would be in a typical year, Patrick Mahomes, just imagine taking him and putting him on the worst offense in the NFL and how much his numbers would deteriorate. But if I'm holding true to that, still trying to be able to see through that to say, I believe Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, even though he's got the ninth best statistics. I still believe because he's got the worst offensive line, he's got the worst running game, he's got the worst wide receivers, but he's still the best. Him personally. That's what I try to do. I'm not trying to project who's going to have the best season.
That's true. I mean,
that's the way I do it. I'm not
coming.
saying that you can't do it other ways, but that's the way I do it.
No, I hear where you're coming from. It's with the college thing too. It's always like, especially if you're in a major program, you're always going to be surrounded with a certain degree of, you're going to have the skill. You should have the skill players around you that are really good as far as backs, receivers, so on and so forth.
It's almost like our buddy Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern. When I rank the coaches, I try to be able to look past just ranking who's winning championships and winning games. Okay, who's playing at a disadvantage?
Sure. Well, that was always kind of the argument. That was, by the way, one of the arguments for Brady's all-time greatness for a lot of years is, other than Moss and then maybe Gronkowski, he played with a lot of pedestrian wide receivers for a period of time there. I'm talking the Troy Browns, Deion Branches, David Gibbons of the world. They weren't exactly, Jerry Rice Part 2. I mean, those were pretty pedestrian receivers.
For sure.
So, well, as always, a pleasure to talk football with the great Mark Rogers. You have yourself a good evening, sir.
Thank you so much, David. Appreciate it. You have a good night. Before I take this next call, I will mention that, I've got a new setup here, and I was taking like 2 or 3 hours trying to figure out in this room, okay, where could I put this and hide this and I'm moving it all around. So I'm sitting in this large chair. I don't know if you can see it there. And it's, as a chair, it's very comfortable, but since I've got to sit up and I can't enjoy the comfort of the chair, I'm actually sitting on a large pillow to try to prop myself up. And I don't know if this is going to work long term because my back is killing me. It's just not a good setup here, but we will make it on through. Ferris, good to see you, man. Ferris had an interesting comment, and I was going to pay some attention to it. Now I forget it. I've passed it by quite some time ago, but I thought it was an astute comment. People letting me know that they don't want to see us do college basketball here, the voice of college football. And I understand that. I've been hardcore right down the line, just college football all the time. But it is an interesting thing to explore, possibly, to, let's say, go on the Ohio State channel and go live during the Ohio State basketball game. And it's not like I'm going to be analyzing the Ohio State basketball game to a nth degree. All right, let's pick up our next call here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hi, Mark. It's Sean.
Hey, Sean.
Hey, how's it going? Hey,
good.
This is great to hear. I just wanted to touch on this basketball topic a little bit, and I don't know. Have you ever been like a big college basketball fan? Like, was there a point in your life where you were very into it?
So, I've answered this question this way for years and years and years when I was really into baseball and the NFL. So there was a point in my life, which, again, for years and years and years, 20 years, whatever, 25 years, when people asked me, because they knew I was an avid baseball fan, football fan, they would say, what's your favorite? Because they always would say, which is your favorite? And I would say, I can't tell you. I don't know. Between the NFL, college football, and Major League Baseball, I love all three of them. And I was, right now, do I follow the NFL? No. I just watch the games on Sunday. I just watch the Red Zone, and I enjoy it as much as I ever have, but I just don't have the time to read about it, memorize stats. 20 years ago, I knew every player on every roster and all the stats and all that. I don't do that anymore. So with college basketball, it was never anywhere close to football or baseball for me, but I really liked college basketball from the late 70s to 10 years ago.
Okay.
And watched a lot.
Like just basically
Yeah.
kind of, and just basically probably lost complete interest since then. Near complete interest since then, I'm guessing, right?
Part of it's based on what I'm doing here. I'm just so consumed in what I'm doing here. So that has something to do with it. And then some of it is just, I don't know how to explain it. I tend to lose interest in things. And I mentioned this to an earlier caller. It just hit me that some of it has to do with knowledge. If I can't be extremely knowledgeable about something, I think I lose interest. And for me to turn on a college basketball game and not know anybody on the court, what's going on, who's who, that kind of bothers me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for same here, absolutely. And we bring this up because I used to just sort of be ravenous consumer as a kid and a teenager, all sports, pretty much. I mean, I was never a huge baseball fan, but I kind of knew which teams were good and which weren't. But I was all in NFL, NBA, NHL, and college football, college basketball, just all over all of them all the time. And I was a wrestler growing up. That was my main sport. And that is mostly college football and sort of Olympic and college wrestling are basically what I follow now. And it's pretty hard for me to, like, I don't know if it's just a function of getting older. I'm in my 30s now. I just can't divide my attention like that. I know nothing about the NHL at all anymore. And I grew up in Michigan, was a huge Red Wings fan when they were good. So I guess that now, since I guess they're terrible, I don't care. But I wouldn't care even if they were good. And do you think that is there something to that? Like when you get older, your interests just kind of you tend to narrow them a little bit. You tend to kind of become a little more consumed about the things that are, you're really passionate about.
It sounds like that's your experience.
You lose sort of side interest. Is that your experience too?
Well, I was just going to say, it sounds like your experience, and it definitely sounds like my experience. Tennis. You couldn't pay me to watch a tennis match. Now I like to play tennis. I'm not a great tennis player by any stretch, but I enjoy playing tennis. And at one point in my life, I used to play like 3 times a week. That's not any longer, but I used to play like 3. So I enjoyed watching tennis. Like now, again, I don't know the last time I sat down and watched more than 30 seconds of tennis versus when I was 10 years old, 12 years old, I was watching Borg and Connors and McEnroe and watching that all the time. Like I wouldn't sit there and watch, the Cincinnati event, in the middle of February, but I'm watching the majors and I'm watching a little bit here and there. I'm watching Davis Cup. The same thing with golf. I used to watch, again, it's not like I'm watching some random tournament on a Thursday afternoon, but I would watch all the majors and I'd watch them, especially the back 9 on Sunday. Now, I don't know the last time I watched anybody hit a golf ball. It's been years. I have no interest. I don't know who's any good. I don't know.
I mean, but you probably are more consumed with college football than you've ever been in your life at the same time, right? You're probably
well, because I kind of have to be in a way, yes, but not as a fan. I'm not. No, I used to be much more emotionally invested in it, 100 times more.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just kind of an interesting, my departure from college basketball. Used to be I could just, my teams, I knew the rosters up and down. I could probably give you the starting lineups for every team in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Can't do that. Just, I mean, like literally, I did not watch a game from beginning to end this year at all. So it's interesting. And you worked in, obviously in television. Were you real involved in tracking the ratings and tracking, the performance of the products you were promoting when you were in the media?
I'm not quite following you.
Okay, sorry.
What was I?
No, were you involved at all in were you keeping track of the ratings performances, how well each sport you were showing, how well they were doing year over year?
Oh, absolutely.
Could you tell like which sports had growing? Okay, so
yeah. When I worked at ESPN, I that was not part of my responsibility to track TV ratings, but ESPN would send all of us in production the ratings every day from the night before, and we would get the ratings, the TV ratings, and TV ratings always fascinated me. Not just sports TV ratings. I'll look at TV ratings from sitcoms in 1975. Growing up in TV and choosing that as my line of work, that interests me. Yeah.
So did you see maybe a trend while you're working there and declining interest in college basketball?
Yes.
It feels like that to me for sure. Like,
oh, yes.
Not only was I more interested in college basketball in the late 90s, 2000s, but everybody I know.
Oh, yes.
It is the same thing. It was the same thing. I live here in Michigan. We have two pretty strong, top 20, top 15 or so college basketball programs in the country. And I check my social medias, and a couple people are talking about it every now and then. Anytime the Michigan State game comes up, that whole week, you can tell everyone's wearing their colors, and it's just an enormous event. They play twice a year in college basketball, and I never know until the night of that there's actually a game going on. So I'm wondering, like, I think there's, probably a lot of things going on with that, but I think there's two things I think that really hurt them is I don't think there's like that consistent of powers. Like even Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, like the big blue bloods, they're not dominant year in, year out anymore. They're not up at the top consistently. There's so much variance. There's so much fluctuation in them. Nothing even feels that special anymore. A few years ago, it hit me like, unless you're talking even in the tournament, like I would say like a 4 or a 13 and, below 15 over 2. Those are the only real upsets. A 13 or a 4, the 13 is going to win that game like 40% of the time, 35, 40%, like something. Like that's not that, and so the fact that there's just, I think, so much mediocrity, and on top, it playing into that too is this one and done stuff, and just the fact that the guys don't ever stay around. So there's no star power pretty much ever built up in college basketball.
Sure.
Yeah, the only one I can remember recently. Here's a total unicorn with Zion Williamson a couple years ago, who actually kind of transcended the sport.
Yes.
And, and aside from him, the last 10 years, maybe you get an Anthony Davis every 5 years or something like that kind of captures the imagination of the people. And that's about it. I don't know. I've always found it a little bit difficult. I don't know if you're the same way, to watch the first half of a basketball game, because it doesn't feel like it ever matters at all. It feels like everything comes down to the last 10 minutes.
Yep.
Big leads just evaporate like nothing, and there's so much volatility in the game that it's actually kind of hard to keep my attention on it the whole time. Whereas you can watch a 3.5-hour football game, like, a play with 7 minutes to go in the first quarter of a 3-0 game. There's urgency even in that moment. There's urgency throughout the entire game. And that's actually something I think football is almost unique in. I think that's the one thing that makes it the biggest sport, that makes it the most attractive viewer sport, of any of the major ones. You agree?
Well, I think there's a pace to football that lends itself to TV. It's a high energy, intense sport in spurts. And so you have time to like see something happen where guys are colliding and there's a lot of speed and action for 4 to 7 seconds. And then you can even in today's offenses with no huddle, there's still time to kind of regroup and be able to show the replay. So you get the benefit of, you just saw the live action. Now we're going to show you a replay so you can better understand exactly what happened. And then it times out perfectly to boom. Then we go to the next play. And that continues. Where basketball, there's a ton of, it's almost a different version of soccer where there's constant motion and the athletes are phenomenal, but it's kind of mundane, them just continuously up and down the court, back and forth and back and forth.
No, yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with all of that. And I wanted to touch on just a couple football topics. The Jaden Daniels to LSU storyline just fascinates me.
Yeah.
I've never known what to make of Jaden Daniels. I mean, you can see talent with him, but I mean, I think his output at Arizona State was maybe slightly above average. Nothing exceptional to write home about. And I don't think he was surrounded by inferior talent. He didn't have a ton, but I don't know. Somehow never, he came in and started as a true freshman, I believe, right?
Yes.
A couple years ago. And I don't know if he's gotten really almost any better since then. I mean, he was really impressive for being a true freshman. You're like, if they're still playing like this as a junior and senior, it's not that great. And he kind of still is playing at that level. And I don't know if you have any read on if he'll actually be able to playing with Keanu Butte and some of those LSU receivers, and hopefully get in the offense with Kelly. I mean, you can't expect a Burrow-like season, but do you have any expectations that he's a real upgrade over what they've had?
So I saw Jaden Daniels play quite a bit his freshman year, and I think he has a high football IQ, and I also believe that he has poise. I don't think he gets rattled. I think he generally plays well in the clutch, and he enjoys those situations. He actually led the nation as a freshman in fourth quarter comebacks against generally good teams. Michigan State was one of them. But he's not, he has arm talent. Well, let me rephrase that. He has more arm strength than arm talent. He's not an extremely accurate passer. And I think that's one of his downfalls, is that he's hot and cold. So he can miss a lot of easy throws, and he needs to clean that up. Whether that's a mechanics thing or what it is, probably is, they need to pay some attention to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Mark. I'll let you go, and have a great spring here. Hopefully, happy daylight savings.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Yeah, if Jaden Daniels doesn't get that cleaned up, which if he's the student of the game that I think he is, and he is taking on a challenge coming to LSU, that, sure, he's going to have more talent surrounding him on offense at LSU, but he's also going to be facing better defenses. There's not going to be the week-to-week Arizona, UCLA, Washington State defenses to face. Sure, Utah was a challenge. USC, from a talent standpoint, earlier in his career was a challenge. That USC defense he faced this past season was awful. But it's going to be Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, and whoever they're playing in the Eastern Division, of course, Florida and whomever else was the other opponent coming up this year. They're going to be playing much better defenses at LSU. And so he better clean up his poor play, which I think is it's usually mechanics. When you're as inconsistent as he is, he's an extremely talented thrower of the ball and runner. And I think he has confidence and leadership ability and all that. I've not dissected him well enough to point to his mechanics, but that's what it usually is when you're as erratic as he is. So, yes, Neil, thank you so much for the contribution. Appreciate that so much, Neil. And I know that that's coming from both you and everyone in the chat. You are just mere the messenger. Yes, wink, wink. But thank you so much for that, Neil. Appreciate that here at the Voice of College Football. Our guy Tim is in the chat pumping up the Patreon, which is, of course, linked to the Discord. So I don't want to make this too complicated on anyone, but the deal is that we've got a Patreon, and you get our predictions there. You get predictions from other media, but of course, the predictions don't do you any good because it's not college football season right now. So in addition to that, you get an exclusive live stream every week per request, and you also get Discord. So what Discord is it's a big chat room. It's almost like what you're seeing right now, but 24/7. You can go on there at any time, and we've got it divided right now into conferences. We've got a national chat, and then we've got ACC, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12. And as we go along, based on the form of the conversations and what's hot and what's not, we can change and add channels. And if it's coming up on the Notre Dame Ohio State game week 1, and there's just so much chat involving Ohio State Notre Dame, that we'll just make that a channel. If Miami blows up and we've got so many Miami fans in there that we just want a Miami channel, we will have a Miami chat. I say channel, then I say chat. It's more to me like a chat. It's called a channel, but I look at it as a chat, and I think that's more clear to everyone rather than calling it a channel. You think of this as a channel. So look us up on Patreon. Go to Patreon, search MarkRogersTV. I will put the link in the chat. Search MarkRogersTV, sign up there, $5 a month, and you're wide open to join us on Discord. And it's my vow to get on there every day, which I did for about 2 to 3 weeks. Now, I did miss the last couple of days. I'm here visiting my mom, my sister, was out with friends the last 2 days. So a lot of that going on. And so I missed out on that, but I will check the Discord immediately following tonight's live stream. And there's Cheryl. Cheryl, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you, of course. And yes, G-Bama boy, Michigan is number 1 all-time in wins. I believe now that Ohio State has had the 12 wins reinstated from the 2010 team, that they have probably inched past Bama. It is so close between Alabama and Ohio State all-time in win percentage that it's that close. I'll make a few Michigan fans unhappy when I say this. Yes, you are the winningest program in terms of numbers of wins in the history of college football. But in terms of winning percentage, which I consider to be more important because it's winning percentage. So, for example, if your football team is 20-10 and my team is 18-3, well, I'd rather be my team that's 18-3. That's a much better winning percentage than 20-10. Michigan started playing football earlier than anybody else who's remaining in the conversation. The teams that started playing football in front of Michigan, before Michigan, are no longer relevant. Harvard, Yale, etc. So who cares? Michigan has played more games. They started earlier. than the teams that they're competing against. And again, that's going to be part of our program rankings. We hope to get another one out tomorrow. We have posted the introductory video. Hope everyone's locked in on this. Our all-time program rankings. We released our Pac-12 video and our Big 12 video. And I've got all the numbers and everything all set to do the ACC and the SEC and the Big 10. And then we're going to do a big program, all-time program rankings reveal. Maybe I'll do a top 25. And some people have asked about teams not in conferences, whether they be in the group of 5 at the top end of the group of 5 or BYU and Notre Dame. Yes, we will address BYU and Notre Dame and some other top group of 5 programs. So they'll be included. Absolutely. And then once we are wrapping up the program rankings series, we're going to go on to our coaches rankings series. And I've got all my notes done and I've made all my rankings. I just got to produce the videos and post them. I'm ready to roll on that. ACC, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, and then we'll do a top 10 in the nation. And then as Dave alluded to, once spring practice is done, we are going to rank every position in college football. We will give you our position by position rankings in college football. And if I'm really crazy and really bust my tail, we're going to give you position rankings in every conference. John is afraid, kind of scared of the Discord channel. I work from home, so I have to be my own boss, and I already spent enough time chatting about college football. Dependent Fanatic, thank you so much for your kind comments. Yes, I don't have a Michigan State channel. So for anyone who has suggested I add a channel, like the Real MVP the other day, Mark, please start a Kentucky channel. What do you need to do here? Okay, we got 25 channels. I'm one guy, and I do have some help here and there, but basically I'm still one guy. And I would like to build these channels to be as strong as they are. We have certain channels that I consider to be strong. Michigan, Ohio State, Nebraska, Iowa, Miami, a few others. Okay. Oklahoma. Some of our channels, not so much. Wisconsin, North Carolina, Auburn, Tennessee are not strong channels. So before we add more channels, I would like to build the channels we have, unless somebody gives me an incentive to start a channel. That's different. Somebody comes through with a sponsor or some type of support to start a channel and says, we want a Michigan State channel, Mark. This is what we're going to do. Okay, then we can do that. But for right now, nothing against Michigan State, nothing against Arkansas, nothing against Minnesota, UCLA. All these would probably be the next ones in line to start a channel. Michigan State, Arkansas come to mind. Absolutely. UCLA as being the most prominent programs that we do not currently have a channel for. But I am I am worn thin in terms of 25 channels. I would like to make those strong first. And it looks like we've got a little bot in here. We got to kick out. Okay. It's not letting me block them. I hate when it does that. Oh my word. So I'm trying to block this webcams garbage here. And I hit block user and I get an error occurred. Try refreshing the page. Oh my word. Seriously? James is telling us what's with the new Ohio State defensive coordinator saying he will have no tackle practices. I did not hear that, but hey, he's got a proven enough record at this point that I'm not going to argue with his. It doesn't sound like the thing to do, top to bottom. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that. That does not seem like that sound judgment to never tackle. but maybe that's a spring football thing for him. Whatever he's doing worked at Oklahoma State. I am trusting Jim Knowles at Ohio State to get the defense fixed. Yes, Troy V. Akron, the Akron Zips channel. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? All right. I believe we've done a ton of damage here at the Voice of College Football, but what I am going to look at and contemplate is look at all the team channels that we have and their corresponding basketball games and see if we want to do live streams during their basketball games. We'll talk some basketball. We'll talk some football. So, for example, Rutgers, Notre Dame, whenever that game's being played, probably Tuesday night would be my guess. It's a first four game. Notre Dame, Rutgers, put it on the Notre Dame channel. We'll see what happens. Maybe that's going to be devoting a lot of time, like 2.5 to 3 hours per channel, per game. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe we'll try that out. All right. Ferris likes it. And yes, Dependent Fanatic as a Kent State grad, which I was contacted by the Alumni Association this week. Yes, Kent State would beat Akron to the punch. They're better. Plus, they have my investment of 4.5 years and money. Hummus Hero, I do not have a Pitt channel. I'd say they are as prominent as UCLA, arguably more so, and I think they have a better fan base, perhaps. Okay. Yeah, when I said Arkansas, Michigan State, Minnesota, UCLA, whatever I said, those were at the top of my head. Exploring with Ben, please support the channel. Appreciate that so much. Yeah, we might be able to make a race out of that, James, a competition between how many people do we have in the live chat for the Akron Zips games versus the people at the games. Rob, thank you so much for the compliment. I appreciate it. This is the rundown for somebody that just asked of our team channels. Okay, here we go. Big 12, Oklahoma, Texas, West Virginia. Pac-12, USC, Oregon. Big 10, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa. SEC, we do have just a SEC channel. Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, Auburn, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida. ACC, we've got Miami, Florida State, Clemson, Virginia Tech, North Carolina. And then Notre Dame. Those are all our channels in addition to this one right here. We have stalled in terms of adding subs. We've been at 33,700 whatever forever. It would be great to be able to, for as much as I am not into awards at all. So, for example, I got my 10-year plaque from ESPN, and that 10-year plaque sat in the box on my desk in the corner forever, like for 4 or 5 years. And people would say, isn't that the box that you got your 10-year plaque? And I'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, how long have you been here? I've had it for 3 years. Just sits there. But I finally got it out of the box. I don't even know where it is now. But then I got my 15-year plaque, which is a Mickey Mouse statue from ESPN at 15 years. And I did take that out. And maybe when I build a very nice set, maybe I'll put that up. Maybe. Why'd I bring that up? Because somebody brought up, we would love to get to 100,000 subs. And then YouTube sends that channel some type of plaque, like a YouTube award when you get to 100,000 subs. So we're at 33,000. We need 67,000 to go. Can we get there? Biggest channel, Ferris. Okay, the biggest channel would be the main channel here at 33,000. And then it would be the SEC channels at around 15,000. The largest team channel would be Miami's at around 7,000. But yeah, if you guys could do anything to get us to 100,000 here on the main channel, that would be phenomenal. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Nobody's been calling for a while, so I think it's time to wrap it up right here at the Voice of College Football. Be looking out for possibly us doing watch parties during the NCAA tournament to talk whatever. Basketball, we'll talk about the basketball game that's on, but we'll talk football all the time. And then in addition to that, join us on Discord. We talk college football all the time, 24/7, 365. You can leave. It's a nonstop chat all the time on Discord. Go to Patreon, search MarkRogersTV, sign up right there. And then also all-time program rankings. I believe the ACC is coming up next, and I will try to get that out Monday. All right, right here at the Voice of College Football. Thank you all for being here. We will see you next time